All right, so now it says I am live. This will be my first time streaming live as far as testing all the new equipment I have. Thought I'd just see what's going. I have no idea if there's anybody in this chat or not. How am I supposed to see that? Maybe this is why I'm testing these things because I don't know what I'm doing. So where would I go to see that? Oh. No, that's private chat. Comments. I'm figuring things out now. Okay, so my next question is the microphone is the new thing. It sounds a little tinny and maybe like it has a bit of an echo on my end. I'm not sure if that's just because I'm hearing it through the headphones or if that's something that's coming through in the live stream. I know I've tried it with a couple of videos now and it did sound like it was coming through and well, all right. Sounds all right in my ear. Don't care at all for the lighting. That background image, if anyone's interested, is a picture I took at Weeden Island Preserve. Ah, hello, Mercurius. How are you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Um, so, does it sound tinny, or do you have an echo from the audio? Because I'm definitely getting it from the headphones, but that might just be because I'm listening to myself and hearing it through the headphones. But anyway, at least I know I'm actually broadcasting, and I found out where the comments were. I was lost for a second. I was like, okay. Okay, so it is tinny. I have to figure out if I can adjust the audio then, or if that's just the nature of the microphone. It's not a bad microphone. Oh, wait. It might sound better if I'm close to it. That sounds a lot better in my ear, but good grief. Yeah, I think that's probably it. I'd probably have to be a lot closer to the microphone. How far away can I get? Okay, thank you, Mercurius. That yeah, it sounds a lot better to me too when I have it closer to my mouth. So I'll just have to figure out something as far. I might have to get one of those boom arms before I do anything serious, like hold a chat, which I'm actually doing, before I try to do an actual play or something like that. Which is actually why I got all this stuff so I can gear up for the adventure that I'm working on now. I'm just keying on the castle, or that's what I'm supposed to be working on this afternoon. The key is actually already done because it's a map from the 1800s when Viollet-le-Duc was doing the restoration of Coucy Castle, and I've renamed it to Corvessy Castle. So I'm just adapting Viollet-le-Duc's written summary of what he was getting ready to work on for the restoration. Hey, nosotros los estamos. It's good to see you. Lots of hair. Hair on the face, hair on the head. And that's where we're leaving it. I'm just going shoulders up here. Although I have to say now, because I'm in my mid 50s, the hairline used to be down about here, and it's gradually working its way backwards. So I'm on my way. All right. Well, I thought I'd give this a try, and I don't want to hold everybody up because I didn't have anything really planned. That's exactly right. Nobody needs any more detail than that's probably even just the face of the head and shoulders is probably more than enough. I could do this with one of the little logos and that just blinks when you're talking, and that would probably make everybody happy too. Except because the other thing I wanted to see, and I'll look at it when I get back to the. I guess it saves itself, or I get a couple hours worth of saved footage. I'm on the free StreamYard account. I need to work on making better eye contact with the camera, and I'm not exactly sure I'm going to do that because I don't mind looking at the camera, but then I can't really see what's coming in on the chat. So maybe I need to work out a second monitor system or something for that. Well, so I probably have not tried as many systems as I think I have. Especially there's so many new systems out now. The core of it really is so AD&D 1E is probably my main stream game as far as what other people have played before. I'm a big fan of the Fantasy Games Unlimited games, particularly the base chance of success system that Robert Charette and Paul Hume came up with. It's sort of a hybrid system. In the sense that it's like it works D20 in a lot of ways, but then you can multiply those 1 to 20 scores into 1 to 100 scores and going by five, that sort of thing. It's it's nice in the sense that most of the adding together of scores from different areas you can do between games, as opposed to one of my other favorite systems is Dragon Quest that was done by Strategic Publications Incorporated SPI, and it's it's a much more complicated game in yeah, see, Palladium. I remember the when the first edition book came out. I was lucky in the sense that one of my friends in beginning of high school was his brother had gone into the army, and his brother had like pretty much every game known to human beings up until the like about 1984ish or so. And so, since his brother was away, deployed either with basic training or then wherever he was stationed, we had free reign on all of his miniatures and his books. So, a lot of stuff like I know we tried pretty much everything. So, at one point or another, tried like all the hero games. That were out at least in the early '80s. So, did Champions, did Marvel superheroes, did Villains and Vigilantes. I ended up buying Villains and Vigilantes and then never did anything with it. um, the same thing kind of goes with Traveler. I distinctly recall we had the little black books. Again, his brother Dave had them all, and we were just reading through them. And I made up a character. It was a Vargur, and we played once or twice, and then that was it. We never played again. And this is the same group that played Starfleet Battles, so we could have adapted that to be like the role playing element of our tabletop game, or the war gaming that we were doing with Starfleet Battles, and just never did. Um, so the Fantasy Games Unlimited games that I really love are Daredevils, Bushido, and Aftermath. And Aftermath was probably out of the three the one that played the least. I really love Daredevils. I really love Bushido, although it was so hard to get people to take an interest in Bushido. Even if you had people that were like they liked martial arts movies or that sort of thing, there's so much more because Bushido. Later on after AD&D added Oriental Adventures and the Wilderness Survival Guide and the Dungeoneer Survival Guide, they started adding more as far as different non-combat skills. That was part of Bushido for early on. So I mean, one of the adventures I had early on was for Bushido was a lot of like the first half of the adventure was just at the Demo's house trying to convince him that you were the sort of person that he could trust to send on a mission. So you had to, do a tea ceremony. You had to compete with haiku, all sorts of things I was making people do at the table. Level 3 OSR, that I don't mind class and level, but yeah, overall, I would definitely prefer things that are skill based, and that's so. Like I was talking about the Daredevil and stuff. So Bushido has classes, and you can only go up to level 6. That's the max level for all of them. But Daredevil really doesn't have a class. You can take things like you're an archaeologist, you're a private detective, you're a journalist, and you can build up with that. Bushido's a really great system. If you like Chanbara, like samurai movies, like When the Last Sword is Drawn, and like Seven Samurai being another great early example. The Zatoichi films are also really good. It's Blind Swordsman that was formerly a masseur. Hey, Ray, how's it going? Good to see you. Glad you could stop by. We're just doing a test. I've learned the hard way that I have to hold my microphone in my hand so that I can hold it close to my mouth. Otherwise, it sounds pretty tinny. But so yeah, Bushido Daredevils. I'm hoping to run. That was actually one of the games I want to run online and do an actual play for is Daredevils, so that people can get a look at that system, because not many people are talking about Fantasy Games Unlimited anymore, and it's such a cool game in the sense that it you don't have a class, you do have a profession that you pick, but it doesn't. It just kind of affects more of like what your background skills are and that sort of thing. But then all the skills are from the few attributes you have, and then kind of these 7 basic talents that are more or less baseline scores, and you can take particular specializations and skills that are subsumed under those 7 talents. But if you haven't taken a particular skill in that area, it still gives you the opportunity to like have some sort of minimum role. So education or fighting. So it's like, you're a bookish professor, you don't actually have any fighting proficiencies taken, but you get into a scrap, you at least have that fallback minimum, on your fighting score kind of thing. Oh, hey, Grumpy Old Slan. I didn't see you come in until just now. So I'm kind of split my time between trying to look in the camera and trying to look at the chat. I'm still kind of getting a feel for how this all works, which is a good reason to do a stress test. Just been talking about other systems that I really like. Talk about Dragon Quest, talk about the Fantasy Games Unlimited. And then there was always like things like Car Wars. We tried the GURP system that went along with Car Wars, and it really didn't go over that well. So it's still 6 characteristics doing the job. I get it. And I think that's perfect. I'm kind of going back to the idea of working on my own game again. At one point, I had it finished. I mean, I got it to a point where I could play test it. I didn't have enough magic, and I really should explain, because the unique part of it is pretty much the magic system. But my game was supposed to be a tri-stat. It's really just it's a sociocultural stat, a biophysical stat, and perceptive cognitive stat. So it kind of consolidates the things like dex. Actually, so 3 of them under the biophysical would be the strength, the constitution, and the dexterity. So it gives you an opportunity, I think, that when you're working, if you're, depending on how you score, because it's supposed to be a max, well, it's max 25 on the abilities, but as far as players or humans are concerned, it would typically be max 20, although I guess you could get over it. You're like god level at that point when you're getting over your 20s. And tripping over my own tongue a little bit too, trying to get used to switching between watching the screen and you're going to be able to say, you're right, it does take a little getting used to. Yeah, I have one screen too. I really, I used to work for Division of Highways as an archaeologist, and I had a nice 3 monitors set up, all the screen space I could ever want or need. And I have not set myself up at home to do the same thing. Let's see. Yeah, less rolls is always better, I think. I try to do only ask for a roll when I really want one, because you don't want to get in a situation where you're like, I decided I didn't like the outcome of that roll, so I'm going to fudge it without trying to let you know. And I've kind of, like I've mentioned a couple times, I think, in the comment sections around I quote the Gary Gygax's comment from, I think it's page 110 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, or right around there, where he's like, "Oh, you're always free to fudge the die rolls." Like, yeah, that's true. And I'll like I said, I'll quote that in different comment sections and whatnot. But while true, you first of all, you don't want to use it unless you absolutely have to, and 2, you do not want players to ever feel like you've been fudging the rolls on them, because they'll just assume that nothing matters. Roll 2-handed, it's roll strength. That works. Roll under strength to parry or under dex to evade. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. That's kind of I know that's another mechanic that's come up. I don't know why that reminded me of that, but the games now that are talking about where you don't have to roll an attack, and one of the games that kind of got me back into like thinking about being active in gaming again was Mouse Ritter, and then also the same as Mouse Ritter. It's based on Into the Odd, and I found that book next, and I was like, "Oh, this game is pretty good too." And that's kind of a quirky setting. Yeah, I've been at a flip the table game. It was actually a game of Risk. Somebody did not like the way it was going, and they literally flipped the table. So, lesson learned there: don't play on a flimsy card table. Always make sure you're playing on heavy oak. Oh, that's another game that I used to love too. Privateers and Gentlemen. Now, I got rid of my books like probably 1989 or so. I got rid of a lot of the games that I wasn't playing very often, just kind of trimmed down to just the ones I wanted. Um, and the Heart of Oak was the miniatures rule set for naval combat that went with that. And I played it quite a few times in the mid to late 80s, and everybody always really enjoyed it. I kind of liked it, but I wasn't that into pirate games at the time, and I think I would like that a whole lot more now. The other thing I wasn't into was like I said, I liked Aftermath, but didn't play it that many times. I wasn't into the whole post-apocalyptic thing when I was in my teens and early 20s, and I've taken more of an interest in that. So like now I'd like to, like I've always talked about, one of the things I think I lost out on was I never played Gamma World. I played Star Frontiers as far as TSR space opera games, but I never played Gamma World, and I definitely regret that, because now, of course, I'm watching other people do live plays of Gamma World, and it looks like a lot of fun. Yeah, hundreds of dice roll. Good grief, and well, that's a complaint, I guess. I have not actually. I've read through the rule books for D&D 5e. Never played the game with anybody, but I know that's one of the complaints about it, is that combats take forever. And yeah, just reading through the books, I'm like, good grief, that's a lot to work out. And that's one of the things I always liked about either original D&D, which was the first thing I ever learned to play, or AD&D First Edition, was combats are not that hard to run. They just sort of fly by. Oh yeah. So now with Game of World, Slan, is the 1E the way to go, or do you think that some of the later editions are just as good? Ooh, too much holding my arm up. Make sure I haven't missed anything. I'm going to read through here. Yeah, as far as going back to what Nostros Lobos was saying, one of the things I liked about some of the older games that you would play is, especially like Dragon Quest, is games where instead of making you harder to hit, armor takes a little damage off the top. So I think that's a mechanic that I really like a lot too, is that you have much fewer hit points overall, so you're always kind of close to death. And this is what I say, I think I kind of gave up on working on my own game, because at one point I was reading Chaosium's BRP, and that's another system I really love. I love Stormbringer. That's one of my favorite Magic systems, and that kind of goes back to why I want to go back to working on my own game again too, because that was a big part of the inspiration for the Magic system I'm using, which is something that Robert Asprin in the Myth series called a mechanic. Instead of a lot of, I do have cast spells in there, but they're sort of meant to be more or less the same kind of progression that you would get with shooting arrows or swinging a sword. So the cast spells aren't super powerful. They're more about having different kinds of patterns that and then they're more or less based on the element of whatever the mage is. I use the 5 element system, so it's earth, fire, water, wood, and metal. So you could kind of, if somebody said they had the Bushido books but hadn't played yet, if you look at the Bushido magic system, that's where that's based from. So if you look, like all the schools had dart, so if you metal dart and wooden dart isn't radically different. It's more just about the pattern of dispersal when you've cast the spell kind of thing. But the more powerful magics, I kind of like to do with I say ritual because it was Stormbringer. It was all about summoning elementals and demons and then binding them to whatever you can do. I don't want to concentrate as much. I would set off the second Satanic Panic, so I don't want to concentrate as much on demons. Not that I'm going to avoid it. If you want to bind, there would be, that would be a powerful magic item too. But it's more about kind of like these named magic items. So the way I have it in mind is, you might make Icarus's wings of flying or something like that. So there's a whole ritual that you have to gather up the materials and assemble a little wing that's probably got some sort of wooden framework and wax and feathers, and then you ensorcel it as far as through the ritual, and then it would have for an hour out of every 24-hour day you could have the power of flight kind of thing. But if you try to use it for more than an hour, the waxes would start to melt and the feathers would fall off and eventually you'd fall out of the sky kind of thing. But I have always in mind then is instead of having to study your spells is sort of you have to have these things that are going to have arcana is the word for it, and into the odd, these objects that have magical powers that you can use on, maybe they only work once a day, maybe they work more often if they're less powerful magic items. And it's kind of like instead of the old wizard lugging around his spell books, he's got a bag full of magic items. He was rooting through it and kind of looking for, I know I have the wings of flying in here somewhere. The old lens of reading magic items. Oh, there it is. Pull that out. That's kind of the feel of the magic system that I'd like to get to anyway. Well, there's definitely a lot of people online now playing Gamma World. I was surprised that that's one of the older games that's really continued to resonate with an audience, that there's so many people that are interested in playing Gamma World, and especially the older editions of it too. Let's see. Okay, so second edition then cleans up a lot of the typos and extraneous details and everything from the first edition. That was more or less true with AD&D when just the core rule books came out. I never bought them, but I know at that time I was playing with 3 different groups, but the main group that I was playing just AD&D with, I was the usual DM, but then there was another guy who was sort of like the alternate DM. Basically, out of the group of people, we were all kind of in our late teens and early 20s. He and I had the better jobs, so we were able to afford more of the books. So we had the books and would occasionally buy modules and that kind of stuff. And I like to run my own homebrew settings and adventures, and he liked to run modules, so it was always kind of nice to take a break, and then I'd get a chance to play and everything too. But he bought the second edition AD&D books right when they came out, and then everybody wanted to can we use stuff from there, and can we use the 2E stuff with your game? I was like, because I am not switching, I'm sticking with 1E. And so we had to sort of negotiate, especially it became more and more problematic as the Splat books came out. When it was just the core rules, there really weren't that many changes, 10-sided versus 6-sided initiative and that sort of thing. But once the Splat books started coming out and people got the idea that there were things like kits and feats, and then they really wanted to use them. And I had nothing against, specialized kit build kind of things, but I didn't really want to have it spelled out for me in a rule book. I would much rather okay, you tell me what your concept is and we'll work it out. But people would get so excited over it. Well, it's already written here. It's got a little category already. I can do it at home. And then with feats, that just got obnoxious for me. I didn't like it. I really prefer, clearly characters as they go through adventures should go through their own journey and make progress and become more powerful. But one of the reasons why I liked Chaosium's basic role-playing system so much is even when you've adventured for a long time and your character is of a quote higher level, you're still always fairly close to death. I mean, if you make stupid mistakes or you're just unlucky with die rolls, you can get injured very gravely very fast. And I know that's, I think, for newer gamers, kind of hard to get over because they're used to systems where they've put so much time and energy into making the character in the first place that it just seems like this enormous loss to lose the character at any point, whether it's a fairly new character, low level character, or one that you've had for a while. And so that kind of puts you in that spiral where you don't want them to freak out on you because they've lost a character, so you're holding back from trying to kill them, or not making things as dangerous as they probably should be. I prefer to feel like your mortality is always hanging over your head with those characters, I guess. Ooh. Let's see. It looks like I've not been keeping up with the chat. I guess it doesn't automatically scroll, so I was midway up there. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Isekai. Otherworld. Ooh. Okay, I think I'm all caught up then. Yeah, I definitely not read enough manga, which is surprising because I really like. I do read a lot of Japanese history. I like Japanese scholarship just in general. One of the things, like I always talk about, this gets off the beaten path of role playing games, but Tadahiko Higuchi has a visual and structural spatial recognition of landscape features that he breaks down into like near, medium, and far. And it's amazing because the first chapter of his book is all these, very minute details about what is physiologically possible with human visual sensory apparatus. And then for every other chapter after that, he just seamlessly will blend poetry and art and all kinds of other kind of stream of consciousness into this academic study that he built on a foundation of biophysical traits. That makes sense. I guess I haven't probably figured out how to highlight things. Maybe it's oh wait, I see there's a little. No, I get delete comment, put user in timeout. Whoa, don't want to do that. And ban user and delete their comments. Yeah, I definitely have. I've seen that. That makes more sense to me that it is a feature, not a bug, to not scroll down like that. But I'm not seeing. I definitely. I'm used to seeing on other people's streams how they can. Maybe is it show? Well, let me try it. Perfect. Sorry if I shouted that. I got excited there. Okay, now I understand that, so I just say show. And then I click hide again and it'll go away. Thank you very much, Grumpy Old Slon. That was very helpful. Oh, yeah. Well, we got quite a bit of rain. It was overcast pretty much all afternoon, and then finally the sun broke out about 3:30 or so. And I'm going to do the same thing, is probably run out and do a little grocery shopping. But I'll let everybody go, and I'll wind down the stream then. I thank everybody who showed up and chatted. This was interesting to me, and it definitely was helpful in terms of trying to get my act together with streaming. I see there's definitely things I need to work on my own end. to just get myself up to speed, let alone my studio setup. But I got a better understanding of like where I'll need to find another space to set up my own studio. But yeah, so Los Lobos, Campeón Salon, Rodini, Ray, good seeing you guys. Mercurius, glad you could stop by. And I think that was, hopefully I didn't leave anybody out because I missed them as the looking through. Nope, I think that was everybody that came out. Anyway, I thank you guys very much for stopping by, and I'll just wind it up here. And this will be the end of my first stress test. And I'm going to, click end stream to do that. Thank you very much. Oh, I got to click it twice, apparently.